Mothman of Point Pleasant, a cryptic flying creature with the body of a 7-foot-tall man and wings that span 12 feet across. He frightened countless residents in the 1960s, and when the bridge in town collapsed, he was blamed for the deaths of 46 people. Does this story hold any weight, or is it just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo made up to scare the crap out of the locals? Stick around as we rip the rings off the supposed legend and dissect the Mount Pleasant Mothman.
It's evil! Don't touch it!
It's alive!
I like you.
They're coming to get you. Power of Christ. This is
Me?
Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Don't you ruin this for me, you motherfucker. This story's true.
How you doing there, Matt?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited for this one. The thing about this one that I like is the little small details that make it just fucking crazy.
I mean, we're not going to go into a whole bunch of super in-depth detail with this one because if we
Take
did,
4
we'd
episodes.
spend 5 hours on it. Let's dig right into this. So, Mount Pleasant was established in 1794. It's a small town. I think it's less than 5,000 people, and it's right on the banks of the Ohio River, right on the border of Ohio. It's a pretty small community, you know. It's only like 3 miles from one end to the other. It's mostly full of blue-collar workers, and there's been a lot of manufacturing over the years due to its location. And I know that the Navy had 3 or 4 manufacturing plants there, and they used it during World War II. I think they made a lot of dynamite and gunpowder.
Oh, yeah. Yep, they definitely did that. A lot of metal work and stuff.
But did you know about the Native Americans before it was settled there?
Yeah, I've heard some stuff about Chief Cornstalk.
Yeah, it was around, let me think, 1774, the Shawnee and the Mingo tribes, they joined together to defend their land that they were living on there, where Mount Pleasant is now, against invading militia led by, some say Colonel, some say General Andrew Lewis.
Yeah.
The battle that ensued would be called the Battle of Point Pleasant later. So here we go. It's a huge, furious battle, and the Indians were overtaken and forced to retreat. And then later, as you said, Chief Cornstalk, he negotiated a treaty with the militia, and the tribes left the area. So fast forward 3 years, Chief Cornstalk returns with 2 sons to Fort Randolph, which is really close to that area, to Mount Pleasant area. And they're going to go discuss some land management issues with the local military guys there.
Feels like we need to break into that part in Blazing Saddles where Mel Brooks is like talking about the paddle ball thing. It's like, I always get a warped one.
Yeah. So anyway, there had been some Indian sightings in the area like a week before Cornstalk showed up. Because of that, they were taken captive, and later they were murdered.
Yeah, well, they while they were captive, I think 2 of their men were killed by what they thought was Cornstalk's men or something.
Right.
So that
There's several different stories. I just kind of took the one that seemed like the most reliable source.
right.
So
yeah,
I could be wrong with this. Anyway, supposedly, upon his dying breath, he cursed the land for 200 years.
Yeah, well, they busted it. Like 2 soldiers came in, and I mean he's in a cell. They got him locked up, and they aimed their guns at him, but he just stood there stoically, just stood there. Apparently, his boy tried to escape through a chimney, and they drug him down, killed him, and they killed Chief Cornstalk. And as he was laying there dying, his curse upon the land was, "I was the borderman's friend. Many times have I saved him and his people from harm. I never warred with you, but only to protect our wigwams and lands. I refused to join your pale-faced enemies with the redcoats. I came to the fort as your friend, and you murdered me. You have murdered by my side my young son. For this, may the curse of the Great Spirit rest upon this land. May it be blighted by nature. May it even be blighted by its hopes. May the strength of its peoples be paralyzed by the stain of our blood."
That's some serious shit.
That is some serious shit. I got chills every time. Every time I've read it, I get chills. It's so good. It's like he meant that shit.
He did. And, bad luck ensued. From 1913 to 1937, the Ohio River, which is, right there, the town's on the banks of it, it flooded 4 times, and it caused thousands in damages to people's homes, businesses, and countless lives were lost in the floods.
Yep.
And also in 1914, this will be the very first sighting of a very large bird with the head of a man covered in red feathers and a wingspan of at least 12 feet. And these
I never heard
continued through the 40s.
I never heard the head of the man one.
Yeah, the people.
That's cool.
The people took it to be a sign of a bad omen or an epilogue to like a tragic event. Like we're talking like Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the Mothman, you think about West Virginia, you think about Point Pleasant. But if you go anywhere else in the country, we're talking about the same things. People always call these Thunderbirds.
There's actually a video from, I don't know what year it was, but there was a video actually in Shelbyville, Illinois. Some guy shot a video, black and white video of what he said was a Thunderbird. It just looks like, to me, it looks like the largest vulture I've ever seen. But it's a pretty cool video. You can only judge it by like the trees, but he claimed it was a Thunderbird.
Wow. Never seen one.
No, I haven't. I wouldn't mind seeing it from a distance or in my vehicle so I could get the fuck away.
Right. Okay. So before we really go any more in depth, most of what we're going to be talking about is going to be taking place in this area in Mount Pleasant that is referred to as the TNT area.
Yep.
Okay. It's located like before, when it was the TNT area, it was in a musician's dump, basically, where they would store all the gunpowder and dynamite and stuff. They had these giant igloos, is what they call them, but they're just concrete bunkers, kind of buried halfway under the ground, so that if the dynamite would blow up, it wouldn't blow all the other dynamite up with it.
Yeah.
In 1979, they actually did some testing, and the chemicals that from all this dynamite has been seeping into the ponds and all of the surrounding area since that time, since they basically had dumped all their waste and stuff into this area.
You're going to tell me there's something in the water? There's something in the fucking water.
There's something
there.
in the water. Yeah, there's something in the water, Matt.
It's like Flint, Michigan.
Yeah. So after the military left the area and they closed it all down, it became the McClintock Wildlife Area, and it became like a nature reserve. So you've got all these abandoned factories and stuff out there, and they just kind of let it go to nature. And, there's lots of trees and stuff in the area and lots of roads.
Yeah, and I'm sure animals took up sanctuary in those igloos and stuff.
Yeah. And all these kids this is where they cruised. This is where they hung out.
Party place.
Yep. So when we say McClintock Wildlife Area, we mean the TNT area. They're the same thing. They're
right, yeah.
In this area, it's about 6-7 miles outside of Point Pleasant.
Yeah, most people refer to it as TNT area. I think that would be the easiest way to go.
Yeah. All right. So the first major sighting that was reported on in the local paper happened on November 1st, 1966. There were some National Guardsmen at an armory near the TNT area, and they claimed to see a brown half-man, half-bird flying in the TNT area. That's the first sighting that I could find.
Yeah, and then it almost like propped itself up on top of something, and then the soldier said he just stood there and looked at it, and it didn't move. And he just stood there and looked at it, and he went to go get somebody, came back.
It was gone.
Gone. Yeah.
All right. So following that sighting, the next sighting happened 11 days later on November 12th, and it was in Clendenin, and that's about an hour away. And that's when the grave diggers claimed to see a strange winged creature flying over them into the trees surrounding the graveyard. They were there digging up a grave, you know. They described it as a massive brown human being that was moving rapidly from tree to tree.
I got a problem with this one.
Okay.
I heard it was only one guy.
Oh, really?
One of them seen it, and he said it was for a minute. Now, in the realm of paranormal, a minute might as well be 14 years, because most people,
Yeah.
most people see something in
Unless
a
it's on tape.
second.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he said it was for a minute, but nobody else seen it. You wouldn't have been like, you know what? Do you guys fucking see this thing? You don't see? You didn't see that.
Yeah.
It's still there. We've got another 45 seconds of it, and you don't see it. That story bothers me.
Okay. Well, I mean,
There's still like a Mothman beef on who's seen it first. Like,
oh yeah, there's lots of beef with this whole story. I mean,
wanting to get the tourists in. I
Yeah.
think that's a sale job. I think.
gotta sell T-shirts, man. It's all about the T-shirts.
Yep.
All right. Well, 14th of November, 2 days following this supposed sighting in the graveyard, Merle Partridge, who lived in Salem, West Virginia, which is 90 miles west of Point Pleasant, he claims he saw his TV got real fuzzy, had strange patterns on it, and
Yep.
then he heard this really high-pitched sound, and his dog went apeshit. Okay? So he goes to open the door to his house to let the dog out, and he turns around, and the TV blows out. Like the tube, all the glass, just boom, it just blows out on the floor. And
Fuck's sake.
he goes and grabs a flashlight, because his dog's like running towards this pump house. It's like in a field just outside his house. He's a farmer. He lives, there's nothing out beyond him except for this field and this pump house. And he sees the dog take off towards the pump house, just row, just going for it.
Right. Exactly.
So he goes outside, shines his flashlight around, and he sees these two eyes. And he says they were like bicycle reflectors, kind of
Yep.
looking back at him. And he was just kind of like, what the hell? And he turns and goes back inside, and he just like, okay, I just must have imagined that, and he just goes to bed, doesn't think anything about it, gets up in the morning, goes outside to look for the dog. Dog's gone. Dog never comes home. Just disappeared. Yeah. And he called the authorities, and he said, he mentioned what had happened the night before. They did a search. They found nothing, never found the dog. So
another thing about that, though, I heard not only did he get his flashlight, he grabbed his shotgun.
I didn't hear that part.
If you've got some dude that's grown up in this area and he's a hunter and he goes out in the woods in the morning to go hunting, right? This dude's not going to be scared of anything if he has a shotgun. Right? But he was too afraid to go get his dog that he loved. That makes me believe this guy's story. At least he's seen something that scared him enough. He wasn't brave enough to go out with his shotgun.
That says something, doesn't it?
It seems believable.
Or maybe
that's why I like this story.
Maybe he's just a candy ass pansy. You never know.
It's a possibility.
All right. So this is the one that everybody knows. Okay. So the next night, November 15th, the night after Merle Partridge's dog runs away and he pisses his pants, these two young couples are out, and it's Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallett, and they're driving around. Basically, they're drag racing out in the TNT area. Roger's got this nice 57 Chevy Bel Air. And they're out there, it's around midnight, so they know nobody's going to be out there. So they're out there laying some rubber down on the road, having a good time. So Linda, she suddenly sees these two large glowing eyes sitting in the middle of the road as they get near the Old North Power Plant, and she screams. And then Roger stops the car and just kind of shines his light. And this thing, whatever it was,
Yeah.
It spreads its wings and it just shoots straight up in the air. Like not like a bird would. It takes off like a helicopter, just straight up.
Another reason why I love this story, because that doesn't make sense. Like if they said it was like 7 foot tall, so you would have to have like a huge flap of the wings. It was almost like wherever this thing's from, it had a loose idea of, hey, things that fly here have wings. I better have wings so they can see my wings, but didn't even fucking need them. Like it wasn't used.
Right. It's more like a choice, like a fashion choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, this freaks them kind of the fuck out at this point. So he gets his car, starts taking off, and he noticed this thing is like just chasing him and keeping up with him. And he's going like 100 miles an hour all the way back into town.
Which that car will do, but man, was he putting it to the limit.
Yeah, I would say so.
So they were definitely terrified if he was doing that fast.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they were all pissing their pants. Okay, so they go back to the edge of town, and they all sit there in the car, and they, have a little discussion. They're like, okay, what the hell did we just see? What the hell was that? What? And they kind of calm themselves down, and then it was nothing. It was probably just a bird with giant red fucking eyes and a wingspan. Of course,
yeah, it's probably just a bird
10 feet across, right?
That's gigantic.
Oh my God. So these dumbasses decide they're going to go back out and look for it again. So they turn around and they go back out.
I get that a little bit, but I would have had to have been out road tripping to have went back. There's no possible way, like sober, like they said that they were, that I would have went back after that.
Yeah.
Nope. If it chased you at 100 miles an hour.
So before they even get back to the power plant, okay, they see that this thing, before they even get there, they see this thing on Route 62. It's just waiting on the side of the road for them. So once again, he flips it around, nails the car as fast as he can go back towards town. And this thing kept up with them all the way to town before it just shot straight up in the air and vanished.
I actually heard, and then I had read that there was a dead dog next to it.
Oh, really? Wonder if it was Mr. Partridge's dog.
Exactly. That's what I thought whenever I heard that detail. But they said they saw a dead dog. But okay, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, you're good. You're good. So at this point, these kids, they went straight to the sheriff's office and told them what had happened. And then Sheriff George Johnson and Deputy Miller Halstead, they went out and they looked and investigated the area for 2 hours. And they saw nothing. They came back completely empty-handed.
But they still maintained that those kids were terrified.
Oh yeah, they said they were scared shitless. Yeah,
they believed them enough to go out there and look for this thing.
Yeah,
So they were good kids, and they believed them. So do I.
That's some strong ganja they were smoking. That's all I can say.
Oh, don't ruin this for me.
So this is the major one that started all the other sightings.
Yep.
So they have a press conference on November 16th, and the press writes about this in the local paper. And have you ever seen this article? Have you ever read this?
I haven't.
No,
I'm not.
It's crazy. Here's the title: Couple sees man-sized bird creature. Something. It's a bird or something. It definitely wasn't a flying saucer. 2 Point Pleasant couples said today they encountered a man-sized bird-like creature in the TNT area about midnight last night. Sheriff's deputies and city police went to the scene about 2 a.m. this morning, but were unable to spot anything. But the two men telling their story this morning were dead serious and asserted they hadn't been drinking. Bullshit. Well, Steve Mallett of 3305 Jackson Avenue and Roger Scarberry of 809 30th Street described the thing as being about 6 or 7 feet tall, having a wingspan of 10 feet, and red eyes about 2 inches in diameter and 6 inches apart. It was like a man with wings, Mallett said. It wasn't like anything you'd see on TV or in a monster movie. The men and their wives were in Scarberry's car between 11:30 and midnight when they spotted the creature near the old power plant adjacent to the old National Guard Armory buildings. The creature was seen standing on 3 occasions and was described as being extremely fast in flight, but was a clumsy runner. Deputy Miller Housestead said he had seen dust in the vicinity of a coal field, but it could have been caused by this bird. He said, "I'm a hard guy to scare," Scarberry said, "but last night I was for getting out of there. They did just that, but the thing followed them. They said it was hovering the car, apparently gliding until they reached the National Guard Armory on Route 62. We went downtown, turned around, and went back, and there it was again. Dipshits."
Yeah.
"It seemed to be waiting on us," Mallet said. He said the gray-like creature then scurried through a field. It also had flown across the top of a car. "It apparently is afraid of light," Mallet reasoned, "and maybe it thought it was scaring us off." The young men said they saw the creature's eyes, which glowed red only when the lights shined on it, and it seemed to want to get away from the lights. They said it looked like a man with wings, but that the head was not on the outside characteristic. Both were slightly pale and tired from lack of sleep during the night following their harrowing experience. They
You mean hungover?
Right. They speculated that the thing was living in a vacant power plant, possibly in one of the huge boilers. "There were pigeons in there in the other buildings," Mount said. "Not in that one. If I had seen it by myself, I wouldn't have said anything," Scarberry commented, "but there were 4 of us who saw it. They said it didn't resemble a bat or in any way, but maybe when you could visualize it, they said it could possibly look like an angel. The last time they saw it was at the gate of the C.C. Lewis farm on Route 62. They heard a sound like wings flapping, and they said the bird rose straight up like a helicopter."
Yep.
"This doesn't have an explanation to it," Mallet said. "It was an animal, but nothing like I've ever seen before." "Are they going back to look for the creature?" "Yes," Mallet said. "This afternoon and again tonight." "Today," Scarberry said, "but tonight, I don't know."
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wouldn't describe it as an angel. If anything, that terrifying. Why would you? If it was an angel, why would you run from it?
Right.
That seems like a terrible.
Well, if it looked
description.
like, if it looked like a giant moth, I think I'd fucking run from it for sure.
Oh yeah. Anyway, yeah, definitely. But I also, how were the breathalyzers back in '66?
Probably not as good as they are.
So they could have got by with saying they were sober, and maybe they said they went back to look for it, so they give themselves a little bit of time to run home, brush their teeth and shit before they went to the sheriff's office to tell.
Right.
Because I'm trying to think, whenever I was that age, well, we wasn't being out cruising around with a couple of girls not drinking. We've been like, "Drink up, baby, come on."
Well, these were married couples that were doing this.
Yeah, exactly. I did the same thing. I've been like, "Drink up, baby."
Right. I also want to note right here that the name Mothman was created by an anonymous copywriter, and I can't remember in
magazine. The dude that was writing for the newspaper.
I didn't find a name. I looked and I've read like 40 articles, watched.
I don't remember it.
I've watched God knows how many documentaries on this.
Yeah,
I could never find a name.
But he was a huge Batman fan, right?
And Batman came out
the
in
TV
66.
show.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. So, just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah, because we got to mention Batman.
Yeah,
the show was great. Adam West.
All right, I want to note something. We're what, like about 20 some minutes into this, but we're only 4 days into these sightings, and that's why we're not going to do all of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just stuck to the ones that
the heavy hitters.
Yeah, the more interesting ones, and just kind of keeping in a timeline here. Yeah. So the following day, on November 16th, Linda Scarberry, wife of one of the guys from the night before, she's rushed to the hospital after experiencing a nervous breakdown.
That happened. That's you didn't see nothing and have a nervous breakdown,
right? The same day,
something happened.
Yeah,
and I've been pretty blasted on drinks before, and I've
never had a nervous breakdown.
Seen anything crazy that scared me to death like that? What were you drinking? Who the fuck cares? There was a fucking Birdman out there. What are you talking about?
Right? Give me a drink.
Give me one. I need one now. See how bad I'm shaking?
So this same day that she's admitted to the hospital, another lady and her brother, Faye DeWitt, they headed out to cruise the TNT area to look for the supposed Mothman, and they wanted to disprove it, and they wanted to prove it was a fake. There was somebody messing with everybody. So they went out and they headed towards the old power plant, and Faye's brother kept kind of like just staring at her and like kind of out the side window. And she finally asked him, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he told her not to look, but he's like, there's something beside the car. And she turned around and she saw two giant red glowing eyes. She screamed. Her brother just gasped it as hard as he could, and he kind of took off towards the power plant, going to try to lose it.
Yeah.
And they ended up in a dead end in the power plant. And this thing landed on the hood of the car. And just
you stupid bastards.
rotated its head and looked at one of them, and then it would turn its head and look at the other one. And it did
I love
this
every
for
bit of that.
It looked at them for like a good minute or two, and then it just shot straight up. And she didn't see where it went. Her brother gets out of the car.
What?
And looks.
The balls on that guy.
And he sees that this thing has gone about 5 stories up and is on the roof of the power plant. So this dipshit decides he's going to start chucking rocks at it.
That'll do it.
So, he finally gets close enough that he hits what he thinks is foot, and then it just flies off in the darkness.
I don't understand why you would think chuck rocks, or why you'd even. I wouldn't get out of the car. That's part of that. Oh, see that starts to make me.
No, you're supposed to run, bitch, run.
Yeah, get the fuck out of there.
Everybody
Turn the
knows the
car
rules.
around and go.
Right.
Get out and chuck rocks at it.
I want you to note something. All right, it's still November 16th. I've got another one from the same night.
This thing's fast then.
Yeah.
It's like Trimmers.
Mr. and Mrs. Raymond Wamsley, along with Mrs. Marcella Bennett and her infant daughter Tina, they were all on their way to visit Ralph and Virginia Thomas, who were some friends of theirs who lived in the TNT area on a farm. They arrived at the home at around 11:30 p.m. They weren't going to stay long. They just hadn't seen them for a while. Anyway, they come to find out that Ralph and Virginia, they were out for the evening. So they stayed briefly and visited with their 3 kids, and then they started to head back to their car. And halfway to the car, they saw a figure slowly rise up behind it. Marcella described the thing as being gray, larger than a man, with terrible glowing red eyes. And she was so scared that she dropped her daughter and just like fell on top of her and froze on the ground. Like,
well, at least she tried to save her. I thought she was doing like one of those marsupial things where they throw the baby out of the pouch so whatever's coming at him gets it. Just her, I'm out.
She said she felt like she was almost in a trance. And then her friend Raymond picked up Tina, the girl, and then she grabbed Marcella off the ground, and they raced along back to the house. They quickly shut the door, bolted the lock, and within a second, they heard a noise on the porch. Like this thing started like just boom, it like hit the front door. Like the second after they shut the lock.
Oh, it's perfect.
Then they saw 2 red eyes appear in the window, staring through the window at them. And then everybody freaked the fuck out. They called the cops, and by the time the cops arrived, it was gone.
Just like a horror movie. The cops get there, everything's all settled.
All right, I know we're probably boring the shit out of people with all these dates, but I thought these were really interesting stories.
Because of how close, the whole thing was like 13 months, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 13 months of sightings start to finish in this particular time span.
Area, yeah.
Which will be an interesting little tidbit when we get to the end when I tell you about something.
Oh, don't you ruin this for me.
All right, so let's go to November 27th, okay? It's 10:30 in the morning, and Connie Carpenter is driving home from church
Mm-hmm.
When she thinks she sees a man on the side of the road next to the golf course, the Mason County golf course on Route 62, until the man spreads his wings that span 10 feet across and it flies right at her car. Now, she thinks she's going to hit this thing. She's freaking the F out. And all she can see is its two giant red glowing eyes.
Yep.
It's, she starts to hit the brakes and this thing just kind of swoops up at the last second and disappears.
So it's not afraid of the light.
Apparently not.
Like
it's
they
in the
said
daylight.
earlier that they thought it was afraid of the light. But that's a cool one because if she's seen it in the daylight, and you're going to get a way better perspective in the daylight.
Right.
But the eyes were still glowing, so that means it kind of seems like it could just turn them on when it wants to.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of cool. She said she claimed that the eyes were as red as the devil.
Well, of course.
So after this happened, she drove home hysterically, and she just kept repeating those eyes just over and over again. And she later, like in the next week or two, she suffered from this condition called conjunctivitis.
What welders get?
Yeah, like when your eyes become red and swollen due to long UV rays. Yeah.
Yeah, welders get that every once in a while.
How the F did that happen? She wasn't a welder.
No, that I didn't. Yeah, I didn't. I know welders get that every once in a while, even when you're wearing your mask. If you're doing it too long, it can eventually burn your eyes, and it's like getting like a super sunburn.
Yeah,
like right on your eyeballs,
on your retina. Yeah,
and that takes a minute. To heal.
Yeah, that's no kidding.
Yeah. Wow, that's okay.
So the very next day, November 28th. By the way, this is all we're talking like within 12 days. We're doing
weeks.
We've only done 12 days span. Okay, this is why we're not going to go through
13 months
fucking incident.
It does get it seems like if you do like a short cast over it does get kind of repetitive.
Yeah. So November 28th, Bob Bobsworth, he's out riding motorcycles with his friends. He's doing this, in the middle of the night. They're out there dragging and stuff, having a good time. And they're out by the power plant once again. And he says it was like a full moon night, and they don't even have their headlights on. They don't need them. They're just out there cruising by moonlight. And they both saw two red eyes on top of the power plant as they were going by it. So these dumbasses decide they've heard the stories. They want to go check it out. So they pull into the power plant, and they see this thing kind of go into the power plant. So they walk in, and they go up the catwalk up to like the 5th floor. And in the darkness, they see these two red eyes just kind of hanging out in the shadows, and it like won't come to the window that's right next to it. It doesn't want to be in the light.
Okay, so there was some light. Like you didn't mention. I'm assuming they didn't have flashlights attached to their motorcycles.
It's a full moon, and
okay, so it was bright enough.
There was some moonlight shining through, so they could see somewhat in the building.
Okay.
So they claim that once they hit the top floor, that they saw it, they see the red eyes, and then it slowly started to approach them. Like he said it kind of scuttled towards them. He said it had a large head, it had a tail, and that they both kind of freaked out, backed up, and then after they started to retreat.
A tail? I never heard that before. I never heard that.
That's why I wanted to add this one in too. They say after they started to like retreat away from it because they saw that, wait, this is not a fucking bird, it kind of turns towards the catwalk and just like flies off out into the night.
Oh, I never heard the tail bit. I like that.
Yeah, that's a new one, huh?
Moths do have, I suppose they got little tails. No, they don't. Do they? Do they have tails? I don't know.
Bob,
that's a great. I didn't know that part.
I
did not know that. But I
just wanted to throw that one in there.
These people are like ridiculously brave just to walk into a place like that.
I would not be one of these
I like it.
motherfuckers. I would shoot first and ask questions later.
No.
Like, woo! Like, pass me another clip. May I please have another clip?
Exactly. Yep. That's how it go. Yeah, I thought it was like 1966. Didn't everybody have a gun on their side?
Well, in West Virginia. Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't.
We interrupt this program to bring you live from Trapper 7. We've got Mr. Spar up there. Spar, what's going on up there in the air?
Yeah, the whole fucking bridge is coming down. This is just outrageous. There's presents floating in the water and all sorts of shit.
Oh, really? Well, that's not good at all.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Oh man, my eyes are so red right now, man.
Oh man, are your eyes red? Because I got this new Mothman eye drops.
Does it work, man?
Totally works, man.
Yeah, man. Pass that shit.
You'll be seeing the Mothman in no time.
Fuck yeah, bro.
Made from pure LSD.
Did you say now, Fast D, man?
Hey man, do you see that, dude? See those two red eyes flying at us? I don't know, I took the Mothman eye drops and try that out and see if you can see it, because it's getting close. It's fucking huge, man. It's like 7 foot tall or something. You think we should run or just kind of chill? Yeah, it's probably not gonna get any closer. Mothman eye drops, made with 100% LSD.
Available in fine retailers everywhere.
On top of all the Mothman sightings, Matt, there's all these other bizarre things that happened around the same time. And I didn't really do a lot of research on Ingrid Cold.
My favorite part of this story.
I mean, I watched a whole bunch of documentaries, but I didn't really dive deep into that because you said you know this part really well. So I'm going to leave this up to you. And then afterwards, we'll play a small clip that I found that I kind of shortened.
Is it from Woody Durenberger?
Yeah.
In his experience? Yeah, because that's what I wanted to talk about. Because, like I said, it's those small little weird shit that makes this story so cool to me. But it was in November, and Woody Durenberger was a sewing machine salesman, which today sounds fucking ridiculous, but that's what he did, traveling. And he lived in Mineral Wells.
I drive a truck.
Yeah, a panel van. And he was heading home from Marietta, Ohio. And he said he saw some lights coming up in his rearview mirror. And he was passed by a black 4-door sedan. And then another vehicle, he said, was about 25, 30 feet behind it. And he thought it was a vehicle until he glanced at his peripheral and seen what it was. He said it was a 30 to 35 foot long, like charcoal colored. He said it looked like a kerosene lamp chimney. So it'd be it'd be like a tube that just like expands toward the end and then closes again. And it politely cut him off.
So it kind of looked like a dick? You're telling me it kind of looked like a dick?
It was a charcoal 35 foot long dick that this person was piloting. So it politely cut him off and then swung horizontally to block off the entire road. So he pulled off to the right-hand side and stopped. And he said it was hovering about 8 to 10 inches off the ground, and the door opened. And it wasn't, this is another thing that I like about this, it wasn't a cool fucking spaceship door opening. It opened like from the side, like a house door or a car door does. And the guy just stepped out, shut the door, and after he took a step away, it shot up in the air. He said 50 to 75 feet.
Whoa.
So the guy
started bright red glowing eyes.
No.
Okay,
Looked like a regular man. He started walking towards the truck. He could hear him before he even got to the truck, and he was asking him to roll down his passenger side window. Said the guy was about 6 foot tall, weighed about 185 pounds. His hair was slicked back. He was wearing a dark blue overcoat that was zipped up, but not zipped all the way to the top. He could see a shirt underneath it. But he said, and the pants, he said it all looked metallic, kind of like a metallic look to it. But it still looked like
from like Buck Rogers shit.
Exact, yeah. Yeah. So he said he walked up to the side of the truck, kept his hands in his armpits, and a smile never left his face. He asked him what he was called. He told him his name, and then he said his name was Cold. He didn't do the Indrid part. He just said his name was Cold. And then he kept asking him why he was frightened. He said, "You don't need to be frightened of us." And he kept using us and we when he would speak. You don't need to be frightened of us. We do the same thing.
Like he's part of a collective.
Like we are legion.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, and then he said he pointed to the town, the lights from the town, without pointing. Like his hands stayed in his armpits.
Did he nod with his nose or like,
nope.
Hey, what's up? One of those?
Nope. He just said he knew he was pointing toward it, like in his head. And Cold told him, "You can either speak to me or do it in your head. Either way you want, it'll work." And then he said there was quite a few vehicles went by, and every time they would, he would turn and look at them while they drove by, but then he'd be right back looking at his face. So he asked him what his job was, and he told him that he was a sewing machine salesman that traveled.
And then he laughed his ass off and he says, you stupid motherfucker.
From Walla Walla, Washington. But Cold said his job was a searcher. That's all he said was he was a searcher. And when he asked about the town, he said, "No, that's the town where I live." And Cold said where he lives is called a gathering.
We are legion.
And Woody said if he wasn't so shit scared, he would have asked more questions because he seriously thought that if he would have asked questions, the guy would have honestly answered them. He said he was polite. Everything was real nice.
It'd be like if the Joker came up to you and just like could communicate with you telepathically.
Yeah, just never take the smile off his face, just the whole time.
Just smiling at you the whole time. That would freak me that fuck out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But he only communicated just for a little bit, walked back, the craft came down. He said he watched his hands come out, opened the door, just looked like a man's hands. He said everything he looked like a man, got in the ship, shot back up in the air. Right before that, he said, "We will see you again." So everything was we and us. It was never like singular. Everything was we and us. And
weird.
I like that so much because it seems like Cold had like a light grip on what it's like to be a human. He had a light grip on it. Like, if I keep my hands in my armpits like Molly Shannon. Yeah, like Molly Shannon from fucking Superstar. If I do that, I don't seem aggressive, and a smile should ease somebody. Well, yeah, it should to a point. You can't just stare at somebody and smile constantly. That's fucking creepy. So I'm wondering if like whatever Cold is, if he's even real, if like the constructs that we've made in this life to make it make sense, like time and math, like that means fuck all to him. Like nothing matters. It's just like, yeah, what are you called?
Right.
What time is it? So
now, I've listened to the whole interview.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like to listen to it too. Yeah.
And I'll put I'll put the link in the description of the episode if you want to check it out. It's about 30 minutes long.
And it's good.
But they mentioned the planet name, which I can't recall off the top of my head at this moment, that he said he came from, and that he also had 3 children at the time of this incident, but that now he had another one, like a 4th child.
It's fucking weird.
Fucking wackadoo, man. It's fucking wackadoo.
I know, but I'm torn between wanting to have that experience and then what life is like after that experience. It's like everything's going fine, then you have that experience and you're like, I can't tell anybody this. They're gonna think I'm fucking nuts. There's no way anybody's gonna believe this shit. So I don't know.
Wackadoo, boy.
Exactly. What do you do after that though? If that happened to you and you've seen that, you're done because now everything's real. It's all of it. everything you've ever heard is fucking real now after one experience.
I also want to note that incident apparently happened on November 1st, which is prior to the Mothman.
Yep.
sightings.
That's a prequel.
The prequel. But the next day, there were two men in Parkersburg that had an encounter with a man that was described as being very similar to Cole, that he spoke with a strange dialect, never opened his mouth. He seemed to communicate telepathically, and he smiled the entire time.
Almost seemed human, but not quite.
Yeah.
And I think I forgot to say this, but I think the fact that the black sedan that it was following could be like a Man in Black situation.
Let's talk about that too. Let's go with the Men in Black thing.
Man, there's a lot of them. There's a lot.
As soon as all this stuff was starting to be printed in the local press, it kind of spread throughout the United States. It took, it's not like social media today. It took a while, but within a month, there were people. They said they look like FBI agents,
or trying really hard
trying to look like. Yeah, they were reported to frequent Point Pleasant, dressed head to toe in black suits, white shirts, black ties, black shoes. They all seem to be perfect in appearance, not completely out of style for the 60s.
Almost too much.
Yeah. They persistently asked people questions about the Mothman and told people not to speak about it. They apparently they visited the reporter Mary Heil, who worked for the local paper there in Point Pleasant, and questioned her about the creature and urged her to stop reporting on it.
Yep, it seemed like that was their mission. They didn't do anything wrong to anybody, but it was kind of just like a scare tactic maybe. But they, once again, you think you know how humans work, so you try to do what you think needs to be done, but it just doesn't come across that way. Right. You just freak people out and then you fuck off and leave. It's so weird. That's why I love this story.
We should probably also mention John Keel. He was a freelance writer, and he arrived by chance into Point Pleasant shortly after all these sightings took place. He didn't even know about it. He was in the area, I guess, investigating claims of a winged cat that this kid had that he was charging a nickel for people to come and see. And
of course he was.
Anyway,
he sewed some shit to the back of his cat.
He said the wings. Keel says the wings of this cat, they ended up being like gristle, just extra fat pieces on the cat's back, and they kind of they fell off. So then the kid had no more flying cat, and he had no story,
and it had no super glue.
Right, but then he heard about the Mothman, and he kind of went to check it out, and he along with Mary Heil, he began interviewing witnesses, and he ended up having, I think he conducted 200 interviews.
That dude Keel was so into this that, I mean, his heart was in it 100%. That dude, he was he was a believer and wanted to try to get proof. The movie, the Mothman Prophecies, Richard Gere's character is based off of him.
Right.
So what they tried to do in that movie was take over 100 people's experiences and put it into a couple people's, what they could with the movie, which I enjoyed. But
he Keel also claimed to receive strange phone calls, having his phone tap, and having these strange men blessed in drag suits and hats who drove black sedans follow him. And he's the one that coined the phrase Men in Black.
Men in Black. Yep.
Yep.
And there was another story actually, while he was investigating this, but he never wrote this story. He told it to a friend, so who fucking knows how true it is. But he said he was just in his apartment, or he was in his apartment, and 3 men in black just was there. They didn't knock on the door. The door was locked. They just happened to be there, and they told him that he needed to stop his investigation and quit because they weren't joking around. And once again, another fucking weird detail is one of them got underneath the sink, grabbed like a gallon of bleach, brought it back, and they all just took like big
Chugged it?
swigs. Yeah, they just
Yeah.
took big swigs out of it. Like, you can't kill us. This is just us showing you. And then I didn't hear anything else. Like, did they vanish? Did they walk out the front door? I don't know, but fuck, it's so weird that that's what makes it more believable. The fact of how weird it is. Like,
Yeah.
did you like him explaining the flying, like Woody explaining the flying saucer is just having like a car door that opens? No, if you want it to look cool and fucking fly down like the Millennium Falcon does, or land like Slave One.
Right. Slave One, by the way, is a reference for those who don't know Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, they changed the name of that ship, didn't they? Oh, shit. Yeah, I forgot.
That's all right. We're not going to be politically correct. Did you hear all my bad Asian Mexican accents?
Well, it makes me think of the robot chicken thing where Boba Fett's.
Yeah. Right. Oh, shit. Anyway.
Okay, I'll just
Okay,
skip the robot
so
chicken
Linda
thing.
Scarberry, who we mentioned, she was in the first published record of this. She said she was also approached by the men in black. She said that they drove black Cadillacs, and she said that their skin was kind of transparent.
Yep.
And you could see the veins in their hands very clearly. Their fingers were very long, longer than a normal person's fingers. And that she noticed she said that when her father shook their hands, he told her they were awkward in the way they shook their hands.
Like
they seemed to not know like what the hell they were doing when they were shaking hands.
It's like, it's like you're learning a new language and you partly know some of it and you're just trying to inch your way through it. It's like they kind of know how humans act, so it's trying to do it, but they don't know how yet.
Right. She also claimed that these men in black, they were, 3 or 4 of them in a car, and that they would follow them around, like even through drive-thrus of like restaurants, and they were afraid to like turn around and look at them.
So they didn't pay it back.
So they didn't. Yeah. This is the supposedly most frightening claim. Was from Connie Carpenter.
Yes. Yeah, this
who
is
I
my
mentioned
favorite
earlier.
one.
She said on the morning of February 22nd, 1967, she was walking to school when a black car holding, having with these men in black, and it, pulled up beside her, and the men told her to get in. And when she said no, they grabbed her arm and tried to force her into the vehicle. And she managed to like get the fuck away from them. And she got back to her house, and there was a note that she found under her door the day after this saying, "Be careful, girl. We can get you. We can get you."
Oh,
that's fucking freaky shit right there.
I like it. It's so good though. I like it. Because there was another Connie, and it must not have been Carpenter. I thought it was Connie Carpenter's story, but that doesn't match up with this one. But there was 2 Connies, I know for sure. But this one said that a 6'6", about 350 man came to their door, knocked on their door, dressed
what about Andre the Giant?
And he was basically dressed the same way, had the hat on, the black suit and everything. And he said he was looking for like something to do with an inheritance. And he was wanting that there was this inheritance suit, and he wanted to find out if they were the people that were going to get the inheritance money. And so he just asked, "Is your husband home?" Came inside to sit down. They said once he came inside, he took his coat off and his hat. His head looked fresh shaven, and they said the same thing about like the skin, like so pale, but also his eyes were bulging like out of his head. Like his nose and mouth looked the same, but his eyes were like bulging.
Are we talking like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall when he?
Yes, that's exactly what I pictured as well. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So he was asking him about birthmarks and scars and where they were, and if they'd fly anywhere in the U.S. to accept this inheritance. So it was just about supper time for them. So being polite, they asked him if he wanted to eat, and he said no, that he was on a diet, but he would need a glass of water in 10 minutes. And they said as they sat there and talked to him, his face got redder and redder. And when it got to the 10 minutes, he asked if he could have that water. Brought him a glass of water, and he took out like this huge yellow pill. Took it, drank the glass of water, and started to calm down. But also his suit was very ill-fitting. So when he sat down, like the bottoms became Michael Jackson, even then some, because they were almost halfway up his calf. And they said they seen a green wire that came out of the sock and went up into the pants.
Weird.
So some kind of green fucking wire. So after he sat there and talked to them, after he sat there and talked to them for a little while, he just walked out. They said he went to the end of the drive and like done a hand signal. A black Cadillac with its lights off at night pulled up. He got in it and they drove away and never turned their lights on.
Whoa.
Crazy fucking details. How weird is that? Who's gonna make that up? I mean, I guess I suppose you can, but this story is completely true. So let's keep going.
Right. Well, Matt,
you're gonna fucking ruin it. You're gonna ruin me at the end, aren't you?
No. You got anything else to add to the Men in Black?
There's been so many stories, but they're all the same. Where it's like it almost looks like they can be faked, like they did it on purpose to look a little bit fake. To like if somebody did it. So that could be the way it was designed in the first place, or that's just how the story's gone. But there's still stories of them where they look a little off, like something isn't right, like the doppelganger stories and shit that you hear about how looks exactly like something, but something isn't right. You know, it's something isn't right. Other than that, they look.
It tastes like chicken, but it's just not chicken.
It's not chicken. Something's wrong with that shit.
Something's wrong with it. Yeah,
but
I got you.
I love the fucking stories. They're so like I said, just the weirdness of it, like it just being. But that's also how every science fiction author gets their books out, is make it a little bit off, a little bit weird.
Right.
I mean, but this story is true, so.
Right. We'll see about that. All right. The other thing that Point Pleasant is known for, other than the Mothman, is the Silver Bridge. Yeah. So the Silver Bridge, it was built in 1928 to connect Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Ohio.
You're gonna fuck. It doesn't matter how you say it. Both people that live there,
they're like sister cities, kind of like Champaign, Urbana, and Illinois. There's two cities that kind of just run together. So on December 15th, exactly 13 months after the first sightings of the Mothman, in rush hour traffic, is, I mean, we're talking pretty bad. There's two traffic lights at the end of the bridge. There's one on each end.
Yep.
Both of the lights were red. The bridge is packed with cars and trucks from the local interstate,
out doing Christmas shopping and shit.
Yeah, everybody's Christmas shopping and shit too. Everybody's getting off work around this time. So because of all this weight, which the bridge collapses, and 46 people die in this tragedy.
Two were lost, I think, that they never found, right?
Yeah, two were lost, they never found. So this is the reason that we now have standards for bridges. There's a bill enacted, and because of this incident.
Because this wasn't like the hanging cable bridge. It was like
it was a suspension bridge.
But it had I-beams
No, there were no I-beams. It was think of like a chain, like on a bike or a motorcycle. It was system like that. That's
hole on each end.
Yes, and so it's the bridge would sway. That's the way it was built. But
when
it was built, the majority of the cars on the road were Model Ts, and they weighed 1,500 pounds.
Yeah, not 2 tons like these vehicles.
The average car weighed 4,000 pounds.
2-ton vehicles. Exactly.
It was said to be weighted like it was like 4 times over its weight limit.
And let me just give props to the American motor makers that can get a 2-ton vehicle to do 100 miles an hour. Yeehaw.
Right? Goddamn right. So the bridge didn't have a failsafe. Like I said, it's similar to a bike chain. So it only took one piece.
Yeah, it was just one like had a crack in it or something, right? That they found later.
It's cold, which is it's gonna make
not,
the
not good for metal. Make it more
right.
brittle, maybe.
Brittle, yeah, it does. Makes it a lot more brittle. So that's the reason it failed. And like I said, it only took the one piece, and the whole thing just came down because of the way it was built, with no fail safe.
Fucking terrible.
So I was going to make this a really big to do, but I mean, the bridge fell down. People died. It was a huge tragedy. 46 people died either by being crushed or drowned. And here's the weird thing I wanted to mention to you. The joint that failed was joint C13N. And it was 13 months exactly after the initial sighting of the Mothman.
Oh, it's a fucking numbers thing coming back, right?
Yeah, it's a weird thing, isn't it?
It pops up constantly, but then also, like, do you remember that shitty Jim Carrey movie, The Number 23? It's like if you look for it, you'll find it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
13 is my lucky number.
A lot of people think I didn't know that. I think a lot of people think 13 is their lucky number. It's just a fucking number. It doesn't matter.
Whatever, bitch, you owe me $13.
I will give you $13 and a penny. Because I don't want to be unlucky. I want to be like an American hotel where I don't have a 13th floor. Of course, the 14th floor is the fucking 13th floor. Because you don't know how to count.
So anyway, in 75, about 10 years after this happened, John Keel releases the Mothman prophecies. And he cites the bridge disaster and incorporates all the UFO activity and the Men in Black. The book takes off. Town becomes kind of iconic amongst conspiracy theorists, ufologists, or ufologists, if you want to call them that, and just paranormal fans in general. And then in 2002, they released the movie with Richard Gere, and Deborah makes a messing of it all. Mm-hmm. That weird fucking chick.
Grace?
Yeah, Will and Grace, that chick. Yeah.
I love that movie. I think
she seems...
I own it. I like that movie. Yeah, I like it.
I almost watched it, and then I was like, I didn't remember it, and I was just like, I'm good.
No, well, one of my favorite lines from that movie is when Richard Gere is playing Keel's character, and it's not the same last name, but they make it kind of close in the movie, and he's talking to Ingrid Cold, and he asks him, "What do you look like?" And his response is, "Depends on who's looking."
Right.
So that just stuck with me, because what would Cold have looked like to you? Would he have looked like a dude with the slick back hair, or would it look like a girl? Would it look like a monster? And that's just movie lines, but that just went through my head because all this weird little tiny stuff made me think that if, just one little twitch off, who knows? But then there was some later stuff that old Woody said that was, he did say that Ingrid Cold came back and visited him, took him to a planet, and I don't remember the name of it because I just got pissed after.
See, that's why I could do shit right there. I don't know about that.
Yeah, it just bothered me. Whenever I read it, I was just like, oh, he took you to a planet where everybody's naked and they're all extremely attractive and there's no war.
Take me with you.
I was like, because I want to believe this, but nobody's going to if we keep poking like
I want to believe there's a planet with naked, attractive people on it.
Well, I wanted to believe the Ingrid Cold thing, and then until he said that, and then it's kind of like, well, that's your reward if you believe in him. It's like, it's like Santa Claus or some shit, but it's like so after I heard that, I was just kind of like, but then they said some other guy mentioned the same planet, the same deal, but it was never released. And I thought automatically, fuck me. It's probably I got to stop.
Fuck me on that good-looking people naked planet.
I gotta stop it. Don't be poking viable holes in this story, or you'll never believe it.
All right, we should probably get to some theories behind all this.
Oh, please do.
All right. So the first and most logical theory comes from Dr. Robert Smith, who was an associate professor of wildlife biology. Goddamn, I can't talk now. At West Virginia University. And he said that he attributed the sightings to a sandhill crane, which stands almost as tall as an average man, has bright red flesh around its eyes. And, you know, given the early numbers of reports that describe the creature as bird-like, he said that, you know, if the crane was deformed, especially if it was
get
a
the
resident
fuck out of here.
the TNT area.
Fuck that snooty motherfucker.
Which
Those
had
people
leaked all these toxic materials in and leached them into the surrounding area.
So we
He
got
said
a
it would
toxic
possibly
Avenger.
No, we had a toxic sandhill crane.
Toxic Avenger sandhill crane is what he's saying.
Yeah, and this theory kind of this is what the national press kind of ran with the Mothman story.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it 100%. Those people live there. They know what the fuck a sandhill crane looks like. They are tall, but they're fucking super slender. They're saying it's the size of a 7-foot tall man. Nobody is going to mistake a sandhill crane for.
Well, if you're loaded on a Saturday night doing 100 miles an hour down
well, if you're doing 100 miles an hour, the sandhill crane ain't going to be there. It can't fly that fast.
That's true. That's true. That's just one theory, Matt.
Don't take it away from me. I'm going to argue this one to the end.
Okay. Another theory is that it was just, you know, a prankster, and that, you know, the sightings
in '66.
Yeah, like
we had a jetpack.
There was a military installation there. You don't know.
Well, that leads me to MK Ultra, but I don't want to get into it because
that'll be another episode or 4. Anyway, so that's another theory, is that it's just a prankster, and then after the bridge incident, they'd just kind of given up on the Mothman thing because of the tragedy.
Damn, it's a hell of a prankster. If he was able to pull that shit off, I mean, they didn't have drones. They didn't have shit like that.
That's true.
I don't know how.
They had some camera planes and shit at that point.
Well, I guess if
would
you
be
started to bring up the Ingrid Cold thing, everybody would just say, well, Woody was lying his ass off. And fuck, he could have been. I don't know. But the interview, yeah, everybody should go check it out if you're interested. It's about a 30-minute thing. It's pretty good. I like to listen.
Like I said, I'll post it in the description.
Hell yeah.
Another thing that we should probably note is the Mothman legend kind of bears a resemblance to several demon archetypes who, you know, amongst people who've kind of experienced sleep paralysis, which suggests that visions are like an embodiment of fear.
I think a lot of these episodes
are their unconsciousness, you know, and drafted onto real life events.
I think a lot of these episodes, a lot of things will go back to sleep paralysis. I think and it almost seems like you're shoving it off because there's too many things that you're just trying to chalk up to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then we've also got, you know, some paranormal explanations. I know I found a couple of sightings that I didn't mention. Like I said, I wanted to keep this as short as possible. And what are we at? We're over an hour into this now. About, you know, possible paranormal explanations, you know, that weave together the aliens, UFOs, precognition, and typically they paint the Mothman as like a harbinger of doom, more sinisterly, and one that like kind of has its roots belted in the tragedy of Bellefonte Point in you know, the Indian corn.
Yeah. I like to think, I don't think this is true, but here's what I like to think. I like to think the Mothman escaped its realm or whatever to come by and warn people, but didn't know how, had no idea how to do it. And since Cold said he was a searcher, he's like some interplane.
You ever seen Critters? You ever seen
Fucking
Critters?
bounty hunter. Well,
Remember Critters, the movie
Of course
Critters?
I have. Of course I've seen
All right, so this is what I
Critters.
see. I see the Mothman as the critter, and I see Cold as the bounty hunters looking for him.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
That's what I'm getting with. That's what
Yeah.
that's my theory. Yeah. If you want to go with the Cold thing, I'm fine with it. Yeah. Let's say, yeah, that shit happened. Okay. Let's just say it did. Maybe.
Most likely, probably.
Doubtfully.
But I'd go with most likely.
But I mean,
I wish it was real. I don't know.
all right, let's wrap this shit up.
Yeah, we can't debunk everything. Nobody's gonna.
We're not going to debunk anything, I don't think.
Well, you can't debunk this fucking story. There's too much shit to it.
Oh my god.
That
If you
over
wanna-
100 fucking people that wasn't even talking to each other at the same time.
Yeah.
News didn't travel then like it does now. They didn't jump on TikTok or what the fuck ever and see somebody talking about this shit.
Right,
And
right.
the stuff he was talking about happened, 2 weeks? How long does it fucking take a paper to come out in 1966? At
Right.
least a week, right?
Yeah.
So
It happened pretty quickly.
word of mouth was slow back then, I believe. As slow
To
as
the
the
point where the
vehicles.
president of the United States found out about it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty crazy. All right, let's wrap this shit up.
Okay.
So the idea that the visitations from the Mothman predicted disaster led people to believe that maybe, you know, there's ties to Chernobyl as well. There's sightings of him there in '86, you know, and with the Mexican flying swoo outbreak in 2009,
Yeah.
and at Fukushima, Japan in 2011. There's claims of
I heard it. Yeah.
Thunderbirds or the Mothman being sighted there. As for sightings of the actual Mothman of Point Pleasant, they've really declined since the 60s. But every once in a while, you'll see a new one pop up on YouTube or the local news or whatever. The last one that I found was like in 2016 when this young guy who had just moved to Point Pleasant saw what he described to be what would be the Mothman kind of jumping from tree to tree. And he claimed to the local reporters there that he was unaware of anything to do with Mothman. He'd never heard of the Mothman before.
How the fuck do you live there and you've never heard of the Mothman? All you gotta do is drive downtown and be like, what the fuck's that statue?
I don't know, man.
I don't know. I don't get that one. I'm not just claiming this thing.
I thought this was a really interesting story.
I love it.
And like I said, we just barely scratched the surface. You know, I could have gone into so many more details. We could have drug this out we could have made 6 hours out of this.
We could have made it boring as shit.
I don't have that much beer, Matt. I just don't have that much beer. But I've enjoyed the couple that I've had while we've been sitting here discussing this. And I've had fun talking about it with you.
Well, I've had fun as well.
I'm glad you're excited about Ingrid Cold.
I don't know what it is about it. He's just like my favorite character from this thing that I just thought, I was like, how cool is that? It was the weirdness. Like I said, I've said it too many times, but it's the fucking little weirdness that makes it more believable.
It's the little details.
Yep.
The devil is in the details.
So we'll never know. I mean, really, but I do love the story. I hope it sticks around. You can't debunk it.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I mean, there's a local historical museum and a 12-foot statue there in Point Pleasant. If you decide you want to go check it out, and there's an annual festival that takes place every September. So go check out Point Pleasant if you want to go experience some weirdness.
Go buy a Mothman t-shirt.
The only Mothman museum in the world.
Other than that other town with that one dude that's a bullshitter gravedigger, they're trying to fight for their rights of the first sighting. Because if you're going to take it away, they already made a fucking movie with Richard Gere in it. Give up the battle, my man. It's over.
Well, Matt, thanks for hanging out with me, man. Always a pleasure. Let's do this again next week.
Hell yeah. And I do want to give props to my buddy Drew, who took the fucking shanky ass sketch of our faces that I drew and turned it into something worth fucking looking at for our logo for the podcast.
Right on. Yeah, that's pretty slick, man. I thought that was cool as hell.
He knows computer. And I'm not huge on knowing computer.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
I don't have all
You leave the computers to us weirdos, and you just keep drawing
I know.
and researching.
What I will definitely do that. This next one's gonna be a fucking weird one. It's gonna be crazy.
Shh, don't give it away.
I'm not gonna.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Until next time, this is Zach.
This is Spar.
And we'll see you next time.
Mr. Dornberger, in your own
Later.
words, would you please relate what happened last night?
And last night, shortly after 7 o'clock, I was coming from Marietta, Ohio, coming down Interstate 77. And just before I came to the intersection of Route 47, there was a car past me, overtaking me from behind. And following closely behind this car was this unidentified flying object. And as the car ahead, or the car behind passed me, this object flew directly in front of my truck, turning crosswise. And when it turned crosswise, it slowed down. It started slowing not abruptly or too fast, but it gave me plenty of time to step on my brakes and slow down with it. But it forced me to come to a complete stop. As soon as I had stopped, there was a door opened in the side of this vehicle, and this man stepped back and came directly to me, or came to the truck. He walked to the right-hand side of the truck, and he asked me to roll down the window on my right-hand side of my truck. And I done what he asked. And this man stood there, and he first asked me what I was called, and I knew my name, and I told him. And he asked me, he said, why are you frightened? He said, don't be frightened, we wish you no harm. He said, we mean you no harm, we wish you only happiness. And I told him my name, and when I told him my name, he said he was called Colby. That was the name that he was called by. And he asked me what the city of Parkersburg, and he pointed to the lights. He didn't point, but he gave the impression that he was pointing, and he asked me what that was called. And I told him it was Parkersburg. It was a city, a town. And he asked me if most all the people lived in this city or town. And I explained to him that it was a place of business. It's where we transacted our business. That the people lived in communities, outlying communities, most of the people. And when I told him that this was a city, he said that where his home was, that was called a gathering. And again, he told me not to be frightened, which I was. I was very frightened. And as far as I can understand, this was all mental. There was no spoken words from him. I knew what he was asking me, and yet he stood there and his mouth did not move. He had a smile on his face. He appeared very courteous and friendly. And after I talked with him a while, he told me he would see me. He said, we will see you again. And he left.